The thing is, and if you're anything like me, you want to start reading everything in one day. I probably just about now am starting to be able to read. Like about 3 years into this journey, I can actually now go through an entire book. It took me about 3 years. So the reason that I could be a lot farther in my journey, and I'm sure you could probably relate to that in some way.
Yeah, okay, as a response to your voice message, and also I'm gonna say something about the whole thing we were talking about up till now. So about the voice message you said about reading, wanting to read everything at once, I actually think that's a huge weakness that a lot of people have, because your energy body can't take all the information because occult writers are writing things that are dense and powerful, you know? And if you're reading, 100 pages in a day and you're actually understanding it, like, I mean, just think about how much is in the Bible. So I think glazing over passages actually protects your energy body. And I think people that read a lot and, retain a lot in their memory are actually basically unable to receive the current of what's being taught in the material. Yeah. I have one friend who swears by Blavatsky, told me to read it, and I said it was bullshit. It sounded like bullshit to me. And she wasn't put off by that or anything. Perhaps she was secretly impressed. I don't know. But she told me how the books are. They'll open themselves to you over time. She advised me to read things slowly. I just didn't like Blavatsky. I kind of refuse to read someone that's that pretentious and everything else. This girl I know is quite pretentious, though. But yeah, I think you having trouble finishing a book, I've come to this conclusion about myself that I'm actually more advanced because I can't finish a book because I know what's in it. You know what I mean? I think that. Now, I do want to say about Blavatsky, I do think that she. Excuse me. I do think that her stuff is probably very powerful. I just wish it was conveyed differently, and I don't. I think I wouldn't have liked her as a person because I feel like I'm listening to her talk when I read her, and I feel like I just don't like this person type thing. Crowley. I feel like Crowley would have been very hard for me to be around him. Like it would be a shock to the system being around him, but I think ultimately I would have liked and respected him and probably admired him. You know, I probably like it could have been me and I that was Israel Regardi. I don't think it was me, but like that was probably that would have been like the reaction I would have to him. I think. Um, you know, so some of its personalities. I also think that there's a lot of possibilities of how the universe works, and probably a lot of them are all correct at the same time. But saying something like Brahma is the divine androgyne consciousness thing is like kind of weird, and I think it's also rough because it doesn't seem to fit into current traditions that much. I don't know. I've not been to India and talked to these people, but I've watched people on YouTube, and I don't know. Yogananda Paramahansa is one of the most advanced people I've even heard of, and he talks about Shakti and her golden power. He's very much like he talks about Shakti the way Christians talk about God. You know what I mean? Um, I think that these are routes to the divine. These are almost in a way metaphors of the expanse of possibility of infinity, the incredible infinity. And as you become into this higher consciousness, you can grasp higher and higher metaphors of the divine fullness of everything, And I think that's some of the trick, but I think a lot of the details don't really matter. That's my beef with Blavatsky, is what is she telling me that's actionable, that makes me powerful, that, you know what I mean? Because, like, if the truth of the universe is Advaita Vedanta, if I'm you, but I'm you that's having my experience, and you're me that's having your experience, and that the only difference between us is experience, and, physiognomy or something, If that's the only difference, then it doesn't matter. Or, you know, so the paradigms matter, and I think this is where I have a little bit of a raw nerve with people like this. It's like, okay, show me your math, show me your, you know, what the point, show me what the, you know, the point is here, because um at the end of the day, there's these suppositions about what is true, and it matters what you choose. And to hear someone just blustering that something simply is true isn't that helpful, and the information on its own is also not that helpful. You know what I mean? So yeah. I love Dion Fortune. She's awesome. And she shows her math. She's humble. She is, you know, kind of like, okay, you know, I've seen this, and this is something I'm a big sucker for in occult speak, is in occult, with occult people, is saying, kind of saying something that's a little bit fringe, just making one statement that implies a lot, and just leaving it out there floating, and it's a reference to many things, right? It's a reference to some complex truth, but it's not something that, you know, you can just prove with words on a page, or, you know, like, there's a lot of things I know that's like, oh, some yogi talked about on the internet, and I tried it and it ended up being true, or I astral projected and saw it, and a lot of people astral project and see the same thing. Yeah, that's not evidence. You know what I mean? In that way. So on the printed page, I think needs to be a certain illusion, or a certain, what's the word, appeal to magic. And I think authors using an appeal to magic instead of an appeal to their own intellect, their own experience, the Mahatmas, the secret chiefs, the ascended masters, instead of making these appeals to authority, the appeal to magic, I think, in occult writing is very powerful. You know, when it's like, you know, like, she'll just, the unfortunate and Crowley will just hint at something and say, oh, it's, you know, and say something like out of left field almost, and you're like, huh? And then you find out what it means through experience. Hearing that some of the bullshit that Blavatsky says, and it's a settled fact, I said it. Maybe there's merit to it because she's saying so many complex things, but yeah.